Alright, so got a couple dirty welds done on this valve cover. I'm going to go ahead and pull the driver's side off. Pull the PCV out of there, and I'll probably drill this one off to the side a little bit. Not perfectly centered, drill it over here a little bit so I don't have any challenges with welding over here. I've done it in the past with just cutting this one off. So we'll see if I have to do that again, but I might just try to move it over so I can try to get the tungsten in there. Alright, so I got the PCV pulled out of there right now, and the issue with this hole is that it's really close to this. So if I line this up center on top of the hole, it's about the right size, but it's really close to here, and it's hard to get in there to weld it. So what I've done in the past is chop this off so you can get in there, but what I think I'm going to do this time is I'm going to weld this hole shut first, and then I'm just going to re-drill the hole over here. So it's going to be tough to drill it with the hole in there, so I'm just going to kind of clean that hole up a little bit, weld it shut, and then I'll move this thing out probably like that. Okay, I got that all welded up now. Just let it cool down, then I'll re-drill it. Now the last video I showed you guys that I got this lathe, so I've been kind of just messing around with this thing. So I made this little plug just now. I started taping up this tube, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should just get this tube out and then I'll weld the hole shut. And then I was like, well, instead of welding the hole shut, I can just make a little plug, and it can be a press fit plug and press it in there. So put the little taper on the end, as the outer diameter is a little bit bigger than the inside of the hole. Outer diameter fits in there pretty nice, and then this measures about 2 or 3 thousandths bigger, so now I'll be able to put it on the press and press it in there. This is actually kind of hilarious. That ridge is sticking up a little bit, but looks pretty good. Alright, there we go. All painted up. I got some black wrinkle paint on it. The passenger side looks okay. The driver's side, I'm not sure how that one's going to turn out because the tip clogged up while I was spraying that one, so I was spraying like...
Oh, geez. Oh, God. Oh, my God.
And then I cleaned it out and got it to fan out later, but looks a little bit more bubbly and kind of has crap in it, where this one's a little bit more smooth. It should wrinkle, and it'll be covered with coil packs anyway, so shouldn't be too bad. Plug turned out pretty good over there. You can kind of barely see it in the paint. So yeah, I'll let these things wrinkle up a little bit, and then we'll get them off the box and look at them. Okay, so here's the valve covers all painted up. I really like how this wrinkle paint turns out. It looks really good. And the bungs turned out pretty decent. Yeah, overall, I just kind of like how this thing turns out. There's the section that has a little plug in it, so you can barely tell that that's there. I do still have these masked off. I'm not too worried about that because the coil packs are going to bolt right on there. So now I'm going to go ahead and get all the tape off. I got new gaskets for these. I'll put the new gaskets on the bolt, new gaskets on the bottom side, and then we should be done with this engine. Should be all done with it. Just got to get the power steering pulley on, the tensioner, and we're ready to move on to something else. Okay, so I got this thing pretty much all put together now. Got the front accessories on. I got the power steering pump pulley pressed on. I did go ahead and put the alternator pulley on the lathe because the powder coating on the front was kind of chipped off because I had the whole old power steering pump setting from the truck face down on the concrete, and I slid it around and it chipped the powder coating off. So I just cleaned that thing up a little bit. I actually think it looks better like that than the powder coat black. Another thing I did was I took some off of the back of here. So this is a 10 thousandths feeler gauge, and it's snug in there, but it's not rubbing. And this is a larger diameter pulley that I put on this because the alternator stopped charging at high RPM. So I put the larger pulley on there, and it worked on the truck with the stock truck setup. And I also had one of these pulleys on the Mustang. And the Mustang, I cut the power steering pump off and bypassed the power steering pump pulley. And this thing started throwing belts. And I realized that it was sticking out about a half of a rib. So what I did with this one was shave like probably 60 thousandths off the back of it, or 50 thousandths. I have the same pulley on my daily driver Silverado, and you can see how much of a gap there is behind the pulley. So this is 62 thousandths 2 feeler gauges put together, and 62 thousandths just kind of falls right through there. So the reason that I have this on my daily driver is because I used this truck to tow the Mustang to the track the day that I was throwing the belts. And in the pits, I swapped out the stock alternator off of here, and I put the bigger alternator on this truck and the stock alternator back on the car. And I did that just so it would keep the belt on so I could run the water pump, because it would throw the belt and then overheat by the end of the track. So that's why I took a little bit off the back side of that thing. So that lines up a little bit better, looks decent, ready to throw the thing in. So the transmission's done, the engine's done. I ordered a torque converter. I ordered it from Jack Roberts at Squirrel Tuned. Also got the Circle D SFI flex plate, so this thing is pretty sweet. So I sent all the specs to them, and Pete Nichols is the one that's going to be doing it. So Jack said he's like spot on every time he gets a converter from him, and it works really well. So even though my setup is kind of, you know, basic stuff, there's nothing too crazy with it, I still want a converter that's going to work well for this. It's the first time I've ever had one spec'd for a build. I normally just get one used, or I just get like an off-the-shelf one. So I'm really excited to have a converter that's set up specifically for this. So once I get that, I can start working on putting the engine and transmission back in. Got to do brake lines, got to do fuel lines, a little bit of wiring, probably 300 million other things that I'm forgetting about, and then we'll have a truck someday.